Hello, what have we here? And welcome to the show, Xanthi. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. Welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's always fun talking to you, especially coming from the music perspective.
Indeed.
Yes. So I know I've been on your show for a couple of times. I'm familiar with your work. So for the people that aren't, what kind of content do you make?
I have a podcast called Star Wars Music Minute, which analyzes the music and sound of Star Wars. The main show, which is the podcast, it's also posted on YouTube, focuses on the feature films, and we go one film at a time, 5 minutes per week. Um, so currently, I'm in the midst of what is it? Wow, all I can think of is Truss, but of course, Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of Truss season, which did go on an awkward hiatus due to the solidarity with the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes, but
Mhm.
um, it's restarting very soon. Also, on my YouTube channel on Star Wars Music Minute, I cover some of the Star Wars TV series with my friends James, Justin, and Christina.
Mhm.
And we will be covering The Bad Batch season 3 with live streams starting later this month.
Yeah, so it can break our hearts, and you can, through tears, just be talking about the music
Yeah.
and how that's bringing more tears.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be a good time because, you know, uh, I've sort of been keeping track of a lot of the themes that have been developing through the seasons of the Bad Batch, which of course take from anyway, I'm getting too into the weeds. But yeah, tune into the Band Batch, that's what we call ourselves, uh, live streams about the Bad Batch to hear more about the music and sound.
Band Batch, that is a fantastic name. After the Bad Batch is over, I hope you guys keep that name and just
Oh no, we
do
do.
whatever with it.
Oh, totally. We did Andor, we covered Divisions season 1, we've covered several of the shows. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Uh, so you obviously you have a music background, and you do this podcast with Star Wars. But what is your Star Wars story? How did you get into
I barely remember a time when
it?
I wasn't into Star Wars. Um, I grew up in the prequel era, so it was a beautiful time to be a Star Wars fan.
Indeed.
Um, uh, Loved pretty much everything about the prequels. uh,
Mhm.
Loved, especially one of the things that I was just obsessed with was, like, one of the very first Star Wars musical things that I remember being obsessed with was, Duel of the Fates, and, like, my brother and I would, like, go around the house, like, kind of just mouthing because we didn't know, like, what the lyrics were to it, but
Mhm.
we would just be like, "Da da da da," just pretending and stuff. So that's a very good memory, and gosh, I read a lot of the books actually, like the books that are now considered legends
Mhm.
at the time. And I don't know if I've reread any of the same ones now, but the books were definitely a big part of, um, for me, my fandom as a kid growing up too, because not a lot of people around me read the books, so
Mhm.
it felt like I had extra knowledge, which just fueled me even more into everything.
I remember going to see the Phantom Menace, and at the time of this recording, it was just announced a couple days ago that the Phantom Menace is gonna come
Okay.
into theaters in May. I remember seeing that when I was 4, and just when Darth Maul activates that second lightsaber, and the choir comes in for Duel of the Fates. That's when my consciousness began. That's where I'm like, I am a human being now.
Oh, that's such a good origin story, just as a person. It's kind of
Yes.
also frightening, but, uh
Oh, my mom hates Darth Maul because she's like, that looks like the devil. And I was like, that's your favorite Sith Lord from now on.
That's funny.
But like as a lifelong fan, you are bound to have some favorites. You talked about reading Legends books, and I'm sure you've
Mhm.
read some canon stuff as well. But what is your favorite book? Canon, Legends
Mm.
doesn't matter.
My favorite, if I had to pick one singular book, I'd say it's Thrawn 2017.
Such a good book.
Um, and notable runners up, I have to say, include the entire Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, but Catalyst and the Revenge of the Sith novelization.
Hmm.
Um, very, those are all very important, like books for me personally.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, have you read all those?
I have not read the Ascendancy trilogy. I've read the Thrawn 2017 trilogy. Revenge of the
Mhm.
Sith novelization is my favorite Star Wars book.
Nice, good one, so
Yes.
good.
Um, and Catalyst, yes, I read for the first time. I want to say fall of 2022. I think.
Nice,
Yeah, I read it along with the Dyad book club. Yeah,
that's great.
yeah. Uh, this is a different question, and it's not going to be your mystery box question. But since we're talking about books, have you done the audio books?
In general,
Yeah,
or
yeah, the
yes,
Star
I've
Wars audio
listened.
books.
Oh yeah, I think I've probably listened to like 90 audiobooks at this point.
Do you think that there should be like separate not in universe, but separate Star Wars universe music for the audio books instead of just redoing the themes that we know and love?
Okay, this is such a complicated question. It's a good question. It's funny because I was just talking about this to someone literally last night. Um, is I think overall what they do with the music in the books is fine, and I'm thinking from a bigger production standpoint, um, just the shorthand of using stuff from the original and the prequel trilogy in the books is fine, especially since it doesn't often like it's once you get the hang of listening to the audiobooks, it's easier to like divorce yourself from the original context. So that's mostly fine. I will
Mhm,
also note that different eras, different waves of audiobooks do have different music. So
mhm,
like sometimes I've noticed the middle grade or like young adult or some of the younger books will have different music altogether. And I've also noticed that the High Republic has started doing different music.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. So I'm not making that. Okay. So I did not
mhm,
imagine that. And some of like Alphabet Squadron or some of the other books, just I do notice there are like different repertoires of music for different trilogies and different. I don't know why. Um, I think it's tough because I think the music is best just being mainly in the background to the
mhm,
audiobooks. So I am not sure that I would re- want too much um, given too many resources like given to this when I also think a bigger thing with me in the books is that I wish sometimes I could turn the like music and sound down a little bit.
mm, mhm,
um I don't know, from a creative perspective I think it would be fun, but then but then my brain would just be like, but then I want every single book to have its own soundtrack,
yeah,
and I do think that might be too much. I don't
mhm.
know, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. I think, I was fine with I think this was last year, maybe like late spring last year. I was rereading the Thrawn trilogy and I was walking outside and it was Thrawn treason
mhm.
and uh it was like Thrawn's the protagonist in this book. So he I can't remember what planet they were on, but they just did something and they won and then it plays the Force theme and I'm like this these don't work.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit like awkward, like, there is
Yeah.
a hilarious part in Thrawn Ascendancy: Greater Good, and I won't give a spoiler, but it's just, like, this very awkward moment where Across the Stars starts playing, and I'm like,
Mm.
"That colors this really poorly, this moment."
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, these themes are important, but it's like, yes, they're the good guys, but it's play the Imperial March. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's though it is an interesting exercise, and I think one of the reasons I've made peace with it is because it recontextualizing the original music that I know from a different context makes me notice different things about the music itself.
Hmm.
So it's more like an intellectually like stimulating exercise, I guess. And because of the repetition, it I've noticed my body start to predict when the chapter's going to end and like
Mm.
the beats that are gonna come up because I know where they tend to place the music at the ends of the chapters, so I'm, like,
Yeah.
feeling this whole thing. Yeah.
No, that's interesting, and I think like especially when they're doing the audio dramas, I think they're doing such a great job with that. I
Oh, the
just
dramas are so good.
I do think they could bring some of the TV music into it, because
Mm.
mostly they kind of keep it to the films. But you could bring in, if they wanted to do a re-release of, the Ahsoka novel, you can work in some of the themes from the Clone Wars as well as the Ahsoka TV show.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. I would love to speak. This is like if I would love to speak with someone, like interview you on my podcast or something if you are involved in the music and just in general audio production of the Star Wars audiobooks. I really want to talk to someone who does that.
Yeah, because it's got to be an interesting process.
Mhm.
Uh, well, going back, but I had to ask that question because I was like, once you have that thought, you can't unthink it. But I
Totally.
had to ask you while I had you on here. Going back to the scheduled programming of questions. What who are three of your favorite characters from any era, legends or canon? Your
Okay.
faves.
So my number one, and I've said this on Chaco and Element Seven's podcast. The my favorite character growing up, and so still, I guess, is Anakin Skywalker slash Vader.
Mhm,
Um, I just think he's like I know, sure, he's quote unquote overused and he's in everything now and whatever. But at all of that aside, I feel that Anakin is like a very interesting character with a lot of lessons to learn from.
mhm,
And because he's been used in so many things, we've had the benefit of having a lot of stories. And I just feel like the angsty kid in me related to him and his experience of not really being listened and nurtured in the way that he deserved to be nurtured. And of course, the horrifying like way that his trajectory ended up going, like the
mhm,
terrible things that he did. And um, I feel like Anakin was one of the has always been like a controversial character or someone that people have a hard time reckoning with, um, and seeing themselves in, which I just find fascinating. Like my whole thing is I try to see how um, I might think I'm not nothing like him, but how if I don't tend to certain things in my life, I could be how I could go down a path like his someday or something. I mean, I don't think
mhm.
that will happen, but yeah, I just think Anakin is a very interesting, rich character slash Vader, whom you know is Anakin underneath everything.
Absolute facts.
And I know you're a Vader fan.
Oh yeah, definitely. Best villain of all time.
Yeah, and just the design that has been bestowed upon like Anakin slash Vader is just visually like and vocally just everything that went into the creation of that character just kind of struck gold, I feel.
Mhm. And I know with like the Ahsoka show, there were some naysayers when they did the in episode 5 where it flashes from Hayden to Vader in the suit and back, and people are just like, that's so basic. I don't see why you guys are getting so, hyped up about that. I was like, no, 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 no. They cooked with that. And I don't care if you want to say it's mac and cheese. It's not Kraft mac and cheese. That's gourmet mac and cheese right there. He cooked. Might not be, the fanciest thing, but they cooked right there.
I have to say that was my favorite episode of Ahsoka. That
Hmm.
episode.
Yeah. Could have been longer. I'll take more.
I would have taken more too.
Yeah, they don't have to give me any cuts. Give me the full like, hour and a half that I know Filoni wrote and filmed. I know it was there, Dave. I know it's there. But so you said Anakin slash Vader.
Okay, yeah.
So what are two more?
Yeah, another one is Thrawn, whom
Yep.
I think I just very much relate to personally. And also um, the combination of seeing Thrawn and Anakin together in alliances is like the pair of them reveals so much about them both. And I feel
Hmm.
like in that pairing, new things about Vader slash Anakin are brought out that don't normally get brought out by other characters in other media. So fascinating, whole cool new sides of Vader and Anakin in that book. Um, and then Aralani, I will have to say, Admiral Aralani, who yeah, is another Chiss
Mhm.
person.
Hoping to get more, hoping to get her in live action.
Oh, I would
Uh,
love it. Yeah.
Hopefully in whether it's Ahsoka season 2 or the Mando verse movie. I just
She's
hope.
such a badass character who understands Thrawn enough to be like an intermediary with him, but also is different enough from him that they both like that he has a lot that he needs to learn from her, and he fills in a lot of her gaps too. Like I just think she's so oh yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and the dynamic between the two, I think, would play really well on screen. And the Chiss are such interesting characters, and then you have their, the whole Grisk part of the plot, which
Which I hope
hopefully
is
translates
yeah,
on screen. Because granted, like you read Legends, I was a fan of the Yuuzhan Vong, and
all
the
right.
Grisk are seemingly in the same vein of that kind of villain. I was like, be really cool to see, and
Mhm.
of where see the Chiss, like like a Chiss Imperial Remnant New Republic alliance would be very interesting dynamic to watch play out.
Totally. Totally. I think the New Republic inclusion would be important in that.
Yeah, but not Senator Ziono. He can go kick rocks.
Totally.
Uh, what is your favorite Star Wars quote?
Okay, so one of them I'm not going to read because it makes more sense in context, but it's kind of in the beginning of the Revenge of the Sith novelization. It's the little like poetic thing about darkness and lightness.
Mm-hmm.
You know the one I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah. So just please read that book. It starts with the dark is generous. That that thing. It's like 3 paragraphs. Just poetry. Um, yeah. The next thing is I have way too many, but just because I'm in the midst of my third read of Thrawn Ascendancy Chaos Rising currently, I read this last night, so it's the most recent thing that pops into my mind. And it's something that happens like Thrawn and his people have just successfully escaped from something, and they're
Mm-hmm.
all like, "We did it, we did it." And Thrawn goes, "We did. We of the fleet like to think of ourselves as heroes. Often, though, the true heroes are those who design and build the warships we take into battle." And that uh, encapsulated in that quote, I feel is so much. Whether it's people, like I guess the people who build things, who build the structures and the things that allow other people to use them and succeed with them, um, don't always get the most like cred, but I appreciate the like respect and shout out that Thrawn has for those who not only do the battles and do the stuff, but those who make the things. And it also reminds me of like even people like Nemec, who isn't like a hero of the rebellion
Yeah.
because he didn't live long enough for that. But in his manifesto, there's lots of seeds that were built upon, or
Yeah.
perhaps inspired people. So it's like in front of behind every or before like every successful thing, there's like people and steps and infrastructure and like manifestos that came before that as well.
Yeah, that I mean, I haven't read Chaos Rising, but that is, I think, a beautiful sentiment that I think Andor is really showcasing, at least from the Rebellion front. Rebels did too. Is seeing the multifaceted part of the rebellion and all the people that never got to live to see even the events of A New Hope, just taking down the Death Star, let alone get to Return of the Jedi and beyond.
Absolutely, they're so important.
Now this one is going to be right in your wheelhouse, and I've been looking forward to this one for you. Your favorite musical piece from Star Wars?
I'm gonna be super basic, but it's I c- binary sunset,
Hmm.
like the force theme, oh it is it's one of those things where even though it's used so often, it's used so much. I think maybe the brakes should be put on it a little bit so it's not overused, but still it like works on me every
Hmm.
time. Yeah, it's just beautiful. It's a fave. What can I
Encapsulate
say?
Star Wars.
Really. And of course, a theme, like a good theme, I think, um part of it is not just the music itself. It's like an association with what it was made for. And so it just imagining like Luke staring out at the binary sunset, seeing like feeling like the hope and the kind of trepidation, but just like the whole universe is out there potentially. It's just so much. It recalls so much. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
All right. So now we get to your mystery box questions. It's a good lead in. So Lucasfilm calls you up. It's hey Xanthi, we need you to compose a theme for any character that you want that doesn't already have one. Who are you composing it for and why?
Ooh, that is an excellent question. Okay. 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 Is it someone, does it have to be someone we've already seen on screen that we know?
Nope.
Okay. Can I say a group of people?
Sure.
I'd say the Skywalkers, the Chiss Skywalkers.
Okay. Oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
Do you have any any inkling of what kind of feeling you would want to invoke with that kind of thing?
Mm, that's a good question. I guess it would depend on if the first okay, theme no, I'm too much of a thought is in my head that I shouldn't get into now, but
Mm.
the a theme says something about the person perceiving the thing that the theme is supposed to represent. So we'll hear a scary theme for a character if we're supposed to think that that character is scary or something. So depending on how we would first meet, like a Chiss Skywalker, for example, um, I guess if it were from the perspective of someone who is fearful at first, then I would think that more mysterious elements would be played up. But if we're approaching it from within the ascendancy, like we understand we're not fearful of what they are, then it would be something something that is like a small seed. Um, okay, a wriggling,
Mm-hmm.
a wriggling, meandering melody that kind of zips really quickly and probably starts on a solo instrument, and seems to kind of, like how fire kind of, you don't know exactly how the flame goes and it is burning, something like that.
Okay.
Something where, yeah,
That paints a picture in my head at least.
nice.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. I'm just like Lucasfilm. Call them. They're right.
Yeah.
They're there. They're available.
I would actually love to score a Visions
Mm.
episode.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
That would be like what I would really want to do is do one of those shorts for Visions. The
Yeah,
music in those are so cool and so different for each one.
yeah, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about Visions is being able to have all these different people be able to pour themselves into Star Wars without having to worry about the necessary constraints of being in the canon universe.
Totally.
Well, thanks again for coming on, Xanthi. Before we go, uh, tell the people where they can find you. And I know you talked about it earlier, but anything else you got coming up?
Yeah, you can find me at Star Wars Music Minute on YouTube and all the other platforms. On Twitter, it's Star Wars Muse Min, and then also at Chrysanthe Tan, which is my full name. Sometimes I post from both, but sometimes I post more from my personal one since it's just me on my team. Um, and coming up, look out for the return of the podcast picking up after our hiatus, right back into The Rise of Skywalker, which has some, in my opinion, excellent music.
Oh, it really does. In the trailers, the music for the trailers absolutely slapped. They just let, hey, John, just do it. Just hit us a little quick for the remix. Okay.
They
Uh,
just, yeah, they tugged on the heartstrings with that one.
mhm. Well, everyone, make sure you check out Xanthi and their work. They're a very talented musician and creator. Thank you again for joining me, Xanthi. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Everyone else, remember, until next time, there are more of us.